الحمد لله الذي خلق السماوات والأرض وجعل الظلمات والنور ثم الذين كفروا بربهم يعدلون. الحمد لله الذي أنزل على عبده الكتاب ولم يجعل له عوجا. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله لقد جاءت رسل ربنا بالحق. ومن كان هجرته للدنيا يصيبها وامرأة ينكحها فهجرته إلى ما هاجر إليه. نعم. And whoever migration was in order to achieve a worldly benefit or to marry a woman, then his migration is for that which he migrated for. Now, so the Sheikh goes further to explain, وهذا مثال للنية. And this is an example for the intention. فالأعمال في الظاهر قد تكون مستوية متشابهة لكن تميزها النيات. So actions in their apparent form, they could be equal and resemble one another. However, that which makes them distinct from the other is the intentions. فالمهاجر إذا أراد وجه الله ودار الآخرة فهذا هجرته إلى الله ورسوله. So the migrant who immigrates in order to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and for the home and the hereafter, then his hijrah is for Allah and his messenger. وعمله الصالح, and his actions are righteous. وإن كان هجرته للدنيا يصيبها وامرأة ينكحها فليس بمهاجر شرعي. And if his migration was in order to marry a woman, then this individual, or to achieve some worldly benefit, then this individual is not a migrant in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the meaning of this portion of the hadith is that the one who outwardly shows that they want to go and travel to seek ilm, or to leave the lands of disbelief and live with the Muslims. But the thing that pushed him to do that, remember we said, النية هي الدافع إلى القيام بالعمل, that the intention, it is that what pushes you to do the action. So whoever shows outwardly the opposite of actually what's in his heart, meaning that it's not haram for a person to travel to get married, nor is it haram for a person to travel to do business. But when the person makes the proclamation or shows apparently that they're going to make migration in order to seek knowledge or to live with the Muslims and like that, but in reality what is behind that is that they met a sister online, or somebody told them about a sister, or somebody told them about the benefit financially and like that, and that's what led them to actually do the action. So much so that if the option of the woman or the option of the financial benefit was taken off the table, they wouldn't leave. And it's how you know what pushes you. You know what pushes you, that if it was removed, you would remove yourself from the action. This is how you find out what your niyyah is. Other than that, if an individual wanted to travel to get married, then it's totally legislated. A person wanted to travel to do business, it's totally legislated. There's nothing haram. Allah Ta'ala said, wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And more than one ayah in the Quran, Allah Ta'ala made that clear, like in the end of Surah Al-Muzammil. Allah Ta'ala said, وَآخَرُونَ يَضْرِبُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ يَبْتَغُونَ مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ. And also, and others who are traveling through the land seeking the bounty of Allah. Likewise, Allah Ta'ala said in Surah Al-Baqarah, لا جناح عليكم أن تبتغوا فضلا من ربكم. And this is regarding Hajj. Allah said there's no sin upon you if you seek the bounty of your Lord during making Hajj. And this is called Iqran and Niyyah. This is called combining more than one intention. So if a person combines an intention, the proof that his intentions were truly combined, it means that if one of them were to be removed, he would still do the action because the other one is still there. And the only thing would stop him is both things that he combined would be removed from the table. So let's say, for instance, an individual wanted to make Hajj, but at the same time, there was a financial benefit. So as he begins to make the trip, the person that he had the business deal with called and said, listen, now I'm not going to be able to do it, maybe next year. But he still continues to go. He said, well, I'm still going to make Hajj anyway. That means that both of his intentions were firm. Likewise, it was the other way around. His Hajj visa was not accepted or something like that. He wasn't accepted to make Hajj, but the business partner said, are you still coming to do the business? He said, yeah, I'm still coming to do the business. So in that case, that the business trip was really a true business trip. Either way, it is permissible to combine between the intentions, even if it's an act of the dunya and an act of the akhirah coming together. But there has to be tabayyun bayna niyateen. It has to be a total separation between the two intentions to the point that one of them does not affect the other one. And if any time one intention affects the other, whichever one had the effect, it was the true niyyah. Whichever one had the effect, it was the true niyyah. Now, and this is how we make assessment of ourselves. Now, إنما هجرته لما هاجر إليه من قصد النكاح. Then indeed his intention was only for that, the reason he migrated, which was for the intention to get married. أو الدنيا, or for the worldly benefit. وهكذا سفر الإنسان من بلاد إلى بلاد إن كان طلب العلم أو للجهاد فله ما نوى. And that is the way it is with the travel of an individual from country to country. If it is for seeking knowledge, what is for fighting in the way of Allah, then for him is what he intended. وإن كان للدنيا والتجارة فله ما نوى. And if it's for the world or to do business, then for him is what he intended. For him is what he intended. And we have to be very aware of this and have diligence and monitoring our intentions and comparing or weighing our intentions next to our actions in order for us to be sure from ourselves that we truly intend what we claim. Now, so if the result of our actions is not what we intended, it's not what we intended. For an example, there was a ظاهرة سفر الزواج من المغرب وبالأخص الإخوة من نيوجيرسي. There was an appearance of people traveling to get married from Morocco. It's specifically brothers from Jersey. It was a big thing. Early and late 90s. Brothers were going to Morocco to get married. And everybody that was going that I spoke to, they said, yeah, man, I want to get me a Moroccan wife and an Arab wife so I can learn the Arabic language. And that was the apparent intention. And I don't want I'm sorry if I'm putting anybody on the spot, but I hope it's an encouragement to correct the intentions. So what happened? Time did not pass except you find out that those individuals were rushing to do the paperwork for those women and bring those women from lands of Islam to lands of Kufr. And they became trophies and arm pieces. I got an Arab wife. I got an Arab wife. So they came back. The woman learned English. The kids spoke English. He never learned Arabic, and his kids don't even learn Arabic. So what was the point? Just to have a trophy? A woman is a woman. So when you look into marriage, what is the benefit that you're going to receive in your dunya and your akhirah from marrying a woman? You're paying money and paying wealth in order to aid the sister in her disobedience to Allah by leaving the lands of Islam and come to Darul Kufr. Then on top of that, she's being stripped of the language of the Quran because she's going to be here speaking English, learn to twist her face and twist her tongue to speak the English language. Then on top of that, her children, they're not going to get it because they're going to be here in these schools and so forth and so on. So there's no benefit in those marriages, and brothers are importing sisters from Muslim countries to bring them to the worst Kafir country on the face of the earth. A country in which, if you study the destroyed nations, there's not one crime that was committed by the nations that Allah destroyed before, whether it be cheating, usury, homosexuality, rape, murder, and all types of sins, except that this nation has established that as a norm. Now, So why would we bring someone from a place where the adhan is being called 5 times a day? You can hear from every direction, in which the Quran is being played from the storefronts and from the houses of the people, in which the masajid are filled up for the salawat, not just Jumu'ah, and so many other benefits that are there, and also bring them from having a daily use of the language of the Quran, even if it's in slang, even if it's a dialect of slang, to bring them to learn the language of colonizers and the ways of the disbelievers, and to get used to that way. Wallahu al-musta'an. So, وهكذا خروجه من بيته إن كان للمسجد أو لعبادة عفوا لعيادة مريض. So likewise, him leaving out of his home, if his intention was to go to the masjid or to visit someone sick, وَنَحْوِ ذَلِكَ فَلَهُ مَا نَوَى, then he has what he's intended. وَلَهُ أَعْمَالُهُ الصَّالِحَةِ فِي ذَلِكَ, and he has righteous actions for that. So if the person intended it sincerely to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he achieved it, whether he achieved it or not, meaning if Allah ta'ala allowed him to reach the end of his path, or he was stopped for some reason outside of his own intentions and out of his own will, then he still will get the reward of the action that he intended. وَإِنْ كَانَ خُرُوجًا لِمَعْنًا آخَرٍ مِنْ زِيَارَةٍ أو أسباب أخرى فله ما نوى وله ما قصد. Now, and if he's leaving out of his home, Allah Ta'ala said, وَمَنْ يَخْرُجَ مِنْ بَيْتِهِ مُهَاجِرًا إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ ثُمَّ يُدْرِكُ الْمَوْتِ فَقَدْ وَقَعَ أَجْرُهُ عَلَى اللَّهِ وَكَانَ اللَّهُ غَفُورًا رَحِيمًا. Subhanallah. Whoever leaves out of his home as a migrant to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then death were to overtake him, then his reward becomes obligatory upon Allah. And Allah ta'ala is all forgiving, most merciful. This is the reward of hijrah. Fi sabilillah. It is one of the things that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, that if a person did it, all of his previous sins will be forgiven. He said that hijrah erases all sins, and hajj mabrur erases all sins, and tawbah erases all sins. Those are the 3 that erase all sins. Hijrah, migrating from, and hijrah here intiqal min balad al-shirk ila balad al-islam. In hijrah, it is traveling, migrating from the land of polytheism to the land of Islam. Now, so you have, if his intention was to go out for a visit or any other reason, then he is going to be judged by what his intentions were. And the ulama bring out some very important fiqh issues when it comes to the intention of an individual while leaving out to travel. And they say that if a person's travel was a travel that involved disobedience to Allah, he intended to disobey Allah, that all of the rukhas, all of the concessions, from breaking the fast of Ramadan, from shortening the prayers from 4 rak'at to 2 rak'at, and all of that is not permissible to him, because it's not permissible for a person to use a concession of Allah to disobey Allah Ta'ala. Because those concessions is in order to preserve energy and preserve life and preserve wealth, and other than that, so Allah gives those concessions to make it easy. وَمَا جَعَلَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ مِنْ حَرَجٍ, and He has not put any difficulty upon you in religion. So those eases are for those people who are doing something that is permissible or highly recommended or obligatory. As for those who are doing things that are disliked, traveling to do that which Allah dislikes or that which Allah Ta'ala has made impermissible, then they should not use Allah Ta'ala's concessions to disobey Allah Ta'ala. To disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Well, hadith al-thani, hadith Abi Hurairah. And the second hadith is the hadith of Abi Hurairah radiallahu anhu, anna Nabiy sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, annahu qala, لا تقبل صلاة أحدكم إذا أحدث حتى يتوضأ. And the prayer of none of you is accepted until he makes wudu. هذا الحديث يدل على أنه لا بد من طهارة من طهارة للصلاة ولا تقبل إلا بذلك ومن صلى بغير الطهارة فلا صلاة له. This hadith it points to the fact that it is a must to have purification for the prayer, and that the prayer is not accepted, or that whoever prayed without purification, that his prayer is not accepted. وفي الحديث آخر يقول صلى الله عليه وسلم لا تقبل صلاة بغير طهور ولا صدقة من غلول. Look at this, subhanallah. He said, and we're going to get to this in the 40 hadith class, inshallah. He said, there's no prayer that is accepted except with purification, and there's no charity accepted with stolen money. What do you mean, man? Any kind of ghulul, somebody took money by the way of deception, like that. But any kind of thievery, any kind of impermissible act, that sadaqah is not accepted from money that is haram, because sadaqah purifies, and you cannot purify with something impure. You cannot purify with something. Allah Ta'ala says, خُذْ مِنْ أَمْوَالِكُمْ صَدَقَاتُ تُطَهِّرُهُمْ بِهَا وَصَلِّ عَلَيْهِمْ إِنَّ صَلَاتَكَ سَكَنًا لَهُمْ. Surah At-Tawbah. Allah said, take from their money charities to purify them by that way, and pray for them. Indeed, your prayer for them, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is a means of tranquility for them. So Allah said, take from their wealth charities to purify them with it. That money has to be clean in order to purify an individual. And this is why the statement of Ahnaf bin Qais, what did he say? من تصدق بمال حرام كمن يتوضأ بالبول. He said, whoever gives charity with haram money is like a man who makes wudu with urine. The man who gives charity with money that is haram is like the man who makes wudu with urine. Wudu is supposed to purify. And this is why it has to come from a pure substance. So it's from a substance that's najas, then there's no way it can purify. Likewise, money that is haram and the person is giving it away. And this is why people cannot be fooled by what they give from wealth if they did not make a taharri, diligence in making sure that wealth was clean. Let's look at the mushrikeen of Quraysh. When they went to rebuild the Kaaba, they were kuffar, idol worshippers. Before the Prophet ﷺ was sent, they said, we have to fix the Kaaba and like that. Let's gather the money, what is going to need to get the work done. And then they made a condition. The money for prostitution could not be used because prostitution was a big thing in their economy. The money from alcohol could not be used, and the money from loan sharking couldn't be used. This was a kuffar. This was their condition at fixing the Kaaba. But today you'll find Muslims into real estate, into that. Muslims own gas stations selling beer, liquor, cigarettes, and like that. And they're coming and putting their money in sadaqah box. Keep it. Allah doesn't accept it. You can't bribe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Jannah. He's al-Ghani. He's the rich. He doesn't need your money. He needs your intentions and your righteous actions. He doesn't need it anyway. He wants for you to put forward your intentions and your righteous actions, which shows that you really believe in him, bil ghaib, and the unseen. So when you purify, you make sure your wealth is halal. And then, because halal wealth is harder to earn than haram wealth. Halal wealth is harder to earn than, so when a person gives from halal, willingly, this is a different expression. When a person gives from their hard-earned halal for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is a different expression. When a person that has his pockets overflowing, his bank accounts overflowing, but it's coming from all types of haram directions. And then when he gives that what? It's the same way he's trying to treat Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the way he treats the IRS, the way he treats the corrupt government officials, saying, listen, don't hold me accountable for what I'm doing here. I put some money in your pocket. He's trying to bribe Allah Ta'ala out of Jannah. And that will be thrown in the individual's face. Not accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a reality. Allah Ta'ala said, قُلْ أَنفِقُوا طَوْعًا أَوْ قَرْهًا لَن يُتَقَبَّلْ مِنكُمْ إِنَّكُمْ كُنْتُمْ قَوْمًا فَاسِقِينَ. That's why I said, read Surah At-Tawbah. Allah said, spend willingly or unwillingly, it will not be accepted from you. Indeed, you are corrupt people. SubhanAllah. I said, no. The hadith of Abi Hurairah radiallahu anhu. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إن الله طيب ولا يقبل إلا الطيبان. Allah is good, He only accepts that which is good. And then in the end of the hadith, ثم ذكر رجل يطيل السفر أشعث أغبر يمد يديه إلى السماء يا رب يا رب. We're going to get to that hadith inshallah. He said, then he mentioned a man traveled a long journey, hairs all disheveled, covered in dust, raising his hands to the sky. Oh my Lord, oh my Lord, oh my Lord. وَمَطْعَمُهُ حَرَامٌ وَمَشْرَبُهُ حَرَامٌ وَمَلْبَسُهُ حَرَامٌ وَغُذِّيَ بِالْحَرَامِ فَأَنَّى يُسْتَجَابُ لَهُ. But his food was haram. His drink was haram. His nourishment was haram. And his clothing was haram. So where will there be an answer for this individual? How could this answer expect his dua to be answered? At-tahaddi. Ayyub al-Sakhtiyani is amazing. Because normally the scholars of Aqidah, when they write books of Sunnah, they write things that have to do with our belief system and the implementation of the belief system. He mentioned something that apparently it doesn't seem that it connects with the belief system, but it does. He said, Ahlus Sunnah, the person of the Sunnah, man alima ma dakhala batnuhu min halal, is the one who knows that that which enters his belly is from halal. That's the person of the Sunnah. You can have the short thobe, you can have the big beard, you can have everything you want. But if you're not making taharri fi rizqik, then it shows that you have an issue in your aqidah. If you're not making sure your provisions halal, you have an issue in your aqidah. People don't think about that. Oh, what do you say about the asma wa sifat? What do you say about khuruj al-hakim? What do you say about iman? What do you say? We mentioned all of those issues, but what about at-taharri fi rizq? What about making sure the money is halal? Because this is connected to al-iman bil-qadar. It's connected to belief in the qadar. The way we earn our money points to how we believe in the qadar. وَيُشِيرُ إِلَى ظَنِّنَا بِاللَّهِ. And it also points to the way we think about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَلَا بُدْ مِن طُهُورٍ لِلصَّلَاةِ. So there's a must that there is purification for the prayer. طهور كامل من الحدث الأكبر كالجنابة والحيض والنفاس ومن الحدث الأصغر وهو الذي يوجب الوضوء كالريح والبول ونحو ذلك. So it's a must to have purification for the prayer. A complete purification from major impurities like sexual impurity, like menses, like postnatal bleeding, and from minor impurity like that which makes wudu obligatory, like passing gas or passing urine, and that which is like it. With the hadith al-akhar يقول مفتاح الصلاة الطهور. And in another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, the key to the prayer is purification. وَتَحْرِيمُهَا التَّكْبِيرُ. And tahrimuha, and that which makes it solemnized, is the takbir. Meaning you have now entered, it's called takbiratul ihram. Ihram is to go into a state of ritual abstinence. Meaning that which you would normally do before you entered into that state, you can no longer do it anymore. When a person puts on ihram for Hajj, he can't be intimate with his wife, he can't hunt, he can't. So things that he would normally do that are halal, he cannot do when he's in ihram. The takbir, the first takbir for the salah, right? That the scholars agree that you have to raise your hand. This is the one you have to raise your hands for. That takbir is ijma'. For the first takbir, you have to say, Allahu Akbar, raise your hand. Whether it be to your earlobes, to your shoulders, but you have to raise your hands. But takbiratul ihram, this is the takbir that makes everything that's not prayer impermissible. Whatever's not salah, you can't do in at takbir illa lid-darura, except out of necessity. except out of necessity. Now, from talking and eating, chewing, and any speech that doesn't have anything to do with the stuff, from moving around, and other than that, this is a must during that takbir. وَتَحْرِيمُهَا التَّكْبِير. So the key to it is purification. And that which makes it officiated or official is the takbir. وَتَحْلِيلُهَا. Tahleel is to be released from something. At-taslim, and that which releases you from that state of ritual abstinence is the taslim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. فلا بد من مفتاح ومفتاحها الطهور. So it's a must to have the key to the prayer, and the key of it is purification. التطهر means to become ritually clean. فَمَنْ دَخَلَهَا بِغَيْرِ مِفْتَاحٍ فَلَا صَلَاةَ لَهُ. So whoever tried to enter it without the prayer, then there is no prayer for him. إِلَّا عِنْدَ الضَّرُورَةِ كَالَّذِي لَا يَسْتَطِيعُ طُهُورًا. Except in the necessity in which a person is not able to purify him or herself. لَا مَاءً وَلَا تَيَمُّمًا. That the person doesn't have فَهَذَا مَعْذُورٌ كالمريض العاجز الذي لا يستطيع. Okay, like a person who is in a place where there's no water, nor is there any dirt, dust, then this person is excused. Like the sick person who is sick and unable to purify themselves. And he is unable. So a person who is sick and disabled, somebody who's bedridden, someone who's a paraplegic, and doesn't have anyone to do that for them, nor are they able to do it themselves. So they pray in the state that they're in. This is what happens. This is called Ahl al-A'zar, the people of excuses. So if a person, let's say for instance, paralyzed from the neck down, he doesn't have anyone, he or she doesn't have anybody to bring them water for wudu, to make wudu for them, they're unable to do it themselves, and like that, then they pray in the state that they're in, they're excused. Now, عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: إذا توضأ أحدكم فليجعل في أنفه ماء ثم ليستنثر لم الأمر ومن استجمر فليوتر وإذا استيقظ أحدكم من نومه فليغسل يديه قبل أن يدخلهما في الإناء ثلاثا فإن أحدكم لا يدري أين باتت يده. الله أكبر. وفي لفظ لمسلم: فليستنشق بمنخره عفوا من الماء. وفي اللفظ: من توضأ فليستنشق. Now, so this hadith, if one of you made wudu, then he should put water in his nose. So this hadith, we know the sunnah is the explanation of the Quran. When somebody say, there's not mentioned in the Quran putting water in your nose and in your mouth. Okay, the Prophet made it clear from his sunnah. He said, so he should put water into his nose and then blow it out. And whoever wipes himself from feces, then he should do it an odd number of times. And if one of you wakes up from sleeping, then he should wash his hands 3 times before entering them into the vessel. Because indeed, one of you does not know where his hands slept. This is a very, very important hadith. This hadith, if you go to the explanation of Sahih Muslim, it explains the danger of opposing the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam explained the details of wudu. And from it is the fact that if we wake up from our sleep, and this is why there was a translation, I don't know if it's been corrected, of Sahih al-Bukhari by Dar Salam, and the translation was wrong. It was from the translation of the hadith of Uthman in the chapter of purification. The translator translated the hadith, and Uthman explained that whoever wanted to see the wudu of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then look at this wudu I'm about to make. And then he called for water, and then he washed his hands 3 times, right? And then he made istinshaq, he rinsed his nose and his mouth. وَمَضْمَضَ وَاسْتِنْشَاقٍ. Then he washed his face. Then in the translation it said, and then he washed his arms from the wrist to the elbow. Whoever did this doesn't have a wudu. Because the first time that Uthman radiallahu anhu washed his hands 3 times is sunnah. It's not obligatory, and it's not a part of wudu. Sunnah. Washed his hands 3 times. To the wrist. 3 times. The wrist. 3 times. Then he washed his nose and his mouth, because that's what you begin with. Face. The face is the first thing you begin with in the Quran, and it's sunnah. Then he washed his nose and his mouth 3 times. Then he washed his face 3 times, then his nose and his mouth. Then after that, he washed his hands 3 times, meaning from his fingertips to his elbows. Right hand, left hand. So whoever washes from the wrist to the elbow has not made wudu. The hand in wudu is from the fingertips to the elbow. Allah said, وَاغْسِلُوا أَيْدِيَكُمْ إِلَى الْمَرَافِقِ, and wash your hands up to the elbows. And up to here, hatta means including. Because the word hatta in Arabic can mean until that point or including that point. If somebody says in Arabic, and it's fun in poetry, say, أَكَلْتُ سَمَكَ حَتَّى رَأْسَهُ. So now, what is the person saying? He said, I ate the fish till his head. Or is he saying including his head? Now, so, this narration was in Sahih Muslim. There was a man who was present when the Prophet explained this part of wudu, that if one of you wake up, he should wash his hands 3 times. Should wash his hands 3 times. And then rinse his nose and his mouth, and then wash his face. He said he should wash his hands 3 times because you don't know where your hands spent the night. La ilaha illallah. So, what happened? This individual was there when the Prophet said that and said, as for me, I know where my hands were that night. He said that to the Messenger of Allah. So he said that. Seems like a small issue. That's our issue. Making issues of sunnah seem small, insignificant. Allah said, وَيَحْذَرَ الَّذِينَ يُخَالِفُونَ عَنْ أَمْرِهِ أَن تُصِيبَهُمْ فِتْنَةٌ أَوْ يُصِيبَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. So warn those who oppose the command of the Messenger of Allah that fitna, and Imam Ahmed said that fitna ayat is shirk, that fitna may befall them or a painful torment. So the man told the Prophet, I know where my hands were at night. He woke up, go to the explanation of Sahih Muslim. He woke up the next morning with his hand in his rectum up to his elbow. It's not fairy tale. It's not folklore. This happened during the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is from the signs of prophethood. The man opposed what the Prophet said. And he woke up the next morning with his hand from his fingertip to his elbow inside of his rectum. Because he said, I know where my hands are at night. And the Prophet said, wash your hands because you don't know where your hands were. The Prophet said, you don't know where your hands were. And the Prophet said, you don't know where your hands were, you don't know where your hands were. It's the end of it. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Now, I don't know where my hands go at night. You wash your hands 3 times before you make wudu and fajr. And then you rinse your nose and your mouth and wash your face. And then wash your hands from the fingertips to the elbows. That's how you make wudu. Another man, the Prophet ﷺ said, Kul bi yamini. And you're going to find this in the book of eating and drinking. The Prophet ﷺ told the man eating with his left, he said, eat with your right hand. He said, I can. The Prophet ﷺ said, you won't. And then he became paralyzed in his right hand. Wasn't able to eat with his right hand. After that, he couldn't even use his right hand anymore after that. Opposing the Messenger of Allah ﷺ. This is the 5th hadith. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله تعالى عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا يبولن أحدكم في الماء الدائم الذي لا يجري ثم يغتسل فيه ولمسلم لا يغتسل أحدكم في الماء الدائم وهو جنوب. So in this hadith, after we talked about al-wudu, in this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ is saying you should never pass urine. And he used the noon at tawqid al-thaqila with the shadda. La yabulanna ahadukum. This is a way of emphasis. He said none of you should ever pass urine in stagnant water and then wash in it. It shows the impermissibility of washing in stagnant water. And in Muslim, it says, none of you should wash in stagnant water while he is in a state of major impurity. He's a state of major impurity. The water should be running like showers or other than that, but the water should not be stagnant.
Say what like you might be out in maybe camping somewhere, but the water has to be moving. Yeah.
It can be a river, but it can't be a lake. Yeah. Lake is just sitting there. Definitely can't be a swamp. I think that's the most stagnant water right there. The swamp, mustanqa, the swamp. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Ikhwa, we have to be careful. I'm going to read a hadith, and there are corrupt scientists that will tell you different. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول أو قال إذا شرب الكلب في إناء أحدكم فليغسله 7 ولمسلم أولاهن بالتراب. If a dog were to drink from the vessel of one of you, he must wash it 7. He said, فَلْيَغْسِلْهُ. This is a command. This lam is called, and with the verb is called lam al-amr, the lam of command. It comes in verbs. فَلْيَغْسِلْهُ 7. Then he must wash it 7 times. And in the narration of Muslim, أُولَاهُنَّ بِالتُّرَابِ. The first time should be with dirt. With dirt. This is iman. We think dirt makes things dirty. We're using dirt to clean things. Only iman can get somebody to do this. This is only iman, ya ikhwan. This is why, as I said before, people stop saying Islam is based on common sense. It's everything is science. Not everything is common sense. What is common sense? Islam is based on having faith that this book is from Allah Ta'ala and that Muhammad is sent by Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. That's what it's based off. This is the example. This is what Abu Bakr was given the name as-Siddiq. As-Siddiq. The one who faithfully believed. It doesn't mean friend. Sadiq means friend. Sadiq is my friend. But Siddiq Siddiq with a kasra on the sad and the shadda and the kasra on the dal. It means one who confirmed and believed. When they came to the Prophet, to Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, and they thought he was going to disbelieve in the Prophet, when they said, you hear the new claims that your friend is making. First he said he was receiving revelation. Now he's saying that he traveled from Mecca to Jerusalem in one night, and he's back already. They laughed. They thought it was funny. And now, will Abu Bakr really still believe in this guy after hearing this? And then Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu having the correct aqidah and having the correct understanding on why we follow the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What did he say to them? Inni la usaddiquhu. This lam is for emphasis. Inni with a fatha. La usaddiquhu. It comes with the verb. Present or past. Inni la usaddiquhu, not la, which is to negate. He said, Inni la usaddiquhu fima huwa ab'adu min dhalik. He said, I believe him in that which is more far-fetched. يأتيه الوحي ونحن بين ظهوره. Revelation comes to him while we're sitting with him. Meaning we don't see the angel, we don't hear the words. He says, this was revealed to me, and we believe him. Jerusalem coming back, traveling, come on. Nah. So, from the corrupt things that science says, they actually say we have studies and do clinical trials and clinical studies. Actually, the human mouth is more filthy than the dog's mouth. Ow. Now, if we're supposed to wash a pot or a bowl or a cup 7 times if a dog licks it, how can you have a dog licking your face and licking you in your mouth and eating out of the same dishes?
They do it.
Kind of nasty stuff. Oh, how many kind of germs and bacteria and just people are nasty. People are nasty.
Question.
Afwan.
Can I ask a question or wait to the
No.
question?
Tafaddal.
So this hadith is referring to an inaya, like a container, a bowl, right?
Mm-hmm.
What about clothing? Would it include that also as well?
It does not. The clothing, just wash it. And same thing with skin. It doesn't include skin, clothing, hair, or anything like that now.
Okay.
No, anyway.
If you touch the dog, is it?
No. Good question. So Ustaz Ahmed is asking about touching the dog. No, the dog's hair isn't the problem. His tongue is the problem. It's mouth.
So the saliva is.
It's saliva. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. So the issue is his saliva in his mouth. No. So all of this is based on having iman in the Prophet ﷺ. Inshallah, we're going to get to the next hadith. We'll read it and then we'll stop there and we'll go through the explanation next week, inshallah. 7th hadith. وله في حديث عبد الله بن مغفل أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال إذا ولغ الكلب في الإناء فاغسله 7 أو عثروه 8 بالتراب. So this hadith is explaining the one before. He said, the Prophet ﷺ said, and this is a point of ikhtilaf between the scholars, but the Prophet actually said the word 8. He said, if a dog licks your vessel, then wash it 7 times and then clean it. The same word, ghafara, cover it. When we say ghafara, right? It's from the same word. وَغَفِّرُوهُ, and then cover it, the 8th time, covered it with dirt. So it's no ikhtilaf, it's 2 ways to do it. So you want to wash it 7 times. It ought to be 8 times altogether. 7 times with water. The 8th is going to be with dirt. The 8th in one hadith, it can be the first time with dirt, and then 7 times with water, or 7 times with water, and the 8th time with dirt. There's either way you can do it. Nah. The Prophet said, wash it 7 times. Ulahunna. When they said ulahunna, that the first of the washing, it could be inclusive. It could be inclusive. So this is where it's like what is why, like, it's not restrictive in how you do it. Either way, you're going to follow either the first hadith or the second hadith, but make sure that you wash it 7 times. Meaning it's going to be 6 times, and the first time with dirt, or 8 times, the first time with dirt, or 8 times in the last time with dirt. Nah.
So like when you said the best was like
Bowl, cup,
so if you just
pot,
yeah, some
pan.
people do, yeah, but I remember people didn't have what they used. Give me that bowl,
Yep,
give it to the dog and just put it back in there.
and just wash it regular.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah, that I didn't see, I didn't see that being
Yeah.
you're right.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. That's the aqidah, that's the culture of America. Dog's a man's best friend. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Yeah. Dogs have more rights than humans in America. Dogs have more rights than humans. You can get more people to stand up, raise money, picket, protest, whatever, if a dog was killed than a human. That's how it is.
Yeah, they police though, they can
Oh yeah, you get life.
responsible. Yeah.
No. Abu Rumay say your hand is raised against.
No, I forgot to put it down. I was in question previously.
All right, now. Okay, so inshallah ta'ala, we have the explanation coming up next week. We ask Allah ta'ala to accept our coming together upon his worship, to make us those who are sincere in our intentions. We ask Allah ta'ala to bless us with beneficial knowledge, pure intentions, beneficial knowledge, and righteous actions according to the sunnah of his Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. If there are any questions or statements, we can take them now. If not, we'll stop here.
Quick question.
Assalamu
I was
alaikum,
just
Sheikh.
curious.
Hold 1 minute. 1 minute. We have the brother Abdul Haq right here in the masjid. He has a question.
Could you give some examples of haram work for male and female?
The brother wants examples for haram work for male and female. Okay. So in order to answer this question, number one, we have to make the disclaimer that Muslims today, we have a habit of going to the exception and not going by the rule. So we start off with what if, when the what if is not even there, right? So any environment of work outside of the home is permissible for a man. And if that environment becomes filled with women, the women are in the wrong place, not the men. Because the asl for the women is in the home. The asl for the women is in the home. So every college campus, schoolyard, cafeteria, every job site, the men have the most right to be there. So much so that the Prophet ﷺ said, "Laysa lin-nisa haqq fi wasat at-tariq," that the women have no right to walk in the middle of the road. Our mother Aisha radiallahu anha said the women used to walk so close to the walls that their clothes would get snagged. This is how they used to stay out the men's way in Jahiliyyah. And as for Western French and English culture, where the men are moving out of the way so the women can have the road and bowing down to women and kissing their hands and feet. Now, this is not from Islam. It's not from manhood. And this men with sensitivity, romantic, gentlemen, and all of this has nothing to do with our deen. The way that Allah Ta'ala ordered us to treat women, you cannot treat a woman better than what Allah said treat a woman. You cannot treat a woman better than what the Messenger of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said treat a woman. So all of these Western ideologies that have men bowing down and losing their manhood and masculinity under the guise of being gentle men is in reality a backward and corrupt ideology, and is not from Islam in anything. So any work environment in which there's no riba. Well, let's start off with no kufr and shirk, no bid'ah, no disobedience to Allah. These are the main conditions. So under those general three, there's no kufr and shirk, there's no bid'ah, and there's no ma'asi, then that is where the men should be at work. No matter what kind of work it is, whether it be heavy work or light work, whether it be a man using his hands or a man using his mind, then this is where a man is supposed to be. And a woman in general, any environment that does not have those things that were mentioned, kufr, shirk, bid'ah, and ma'asi, and men are not present, then this is an environment where a woman can work. It is permissible for a woman to work. It's not encouraged, but it's permissible. So this is the rule. Now, after that, exceptions are a case-by-case study. Exceptions are a case-by-case study. So there's no such thing as an exception that just falls for everybody. No. Each person has to understand that there are details to everyone who has been excused by exception, and they have to make sure they meet the criteria and the details of those exceptions. So haram work, once again, is any place that has kufr, shirk, bid'ah, or disobedience to Allah Ta'ala in it. However, if that disobedience is caused, meaning intermingling, because the women came out into that workplace, then the men do not have to abandon that workplace due to the presence of women unless they are put to trial and they begin to disobey Allah directly because of their presence there. Other than that, the women are the ones who are out of place. On the buses, on the trains, inside the Ubers and all of that, they're the ones out of place. So the men should not abandon their original position due to the women crowding them in that position. Rather, the women should find a way to return to their homes, whether it be working online and other than that, or babysitting, nursing, midwifing, doing those jobs that does not entertain mixing and mingling or being alone with men. This is what the women have to seek. And then the men, once the women begin seeking jobs that really complement their nature, then the men will no longer be crowded by them in the general workplaces where the men are supposed to have the duties. And then we will have a big cure to the issue of the intermingling and all other types of disobedience, from cheating spouses and sneaky links at work, and women sleeping with the secretary, sleeping with the boss, and all of this stuff that goes on because of intermingling in the workplace. Now, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I have a question.
No,
Budu, you said that. So that's the only fajr for a person to sleep and then wake up and then wash their hand 3 times. What about the other time when we make the wudu?
This was only mentioned directly for Fajr, but the ulama say it's permissible for other prayers because the Prophet said if you went to sleep. However, if you go into the explanation of Sahih Muslim and the other hadith, إِذَا قَامَ أَحَدُكُم مِنَ اللَّيْلِ, is one of you stood up by night. Like that's what speaks directly to Fajr. But if a person wants to do it outside of Fajr, it will be more complete. It will be more complete. Now,
Just the habitual people just wash the hand 3 times or
right, that's sunnah.
sunnah, but fajr is
Obligatory.
then you can wash only 1 time also.
Yeah,
Other than fajr.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Alright.
specifically if the person is not sleeping. But if the al-ahwat, the more safest place is that if a person sleeps at any time, then when he wakes up, wash his hands 3 times.
Okay.
No.
And the other question, Chef, we had about the lake or running water. So lake is stagnant, but the size of the lake is huge.
Mhm.
Good time, like.
No.
And I understand swamp,
Mhm.
which you can see is a green water or
Mhm.
green color of the water. That's a swamp, right?
Mhm.
So that have probably more insects or disease, things like that compared to a lake.
Mhm. Well, the issue with the water being impure, that has nothing to do with insects or amphibians or reptiles or anything like that.
Okay.
It has to have najas. Najas is the only thing. So the swamp, it smells, that's the natural smell of a swamp. It's not, the water hasn't changed. That's how a swamp smells. A lake, the lake, even rivers, creeks, for instance, creeks run. Creeks smell bad, but it's pure water. Can we move at a creek? Right? Because it's running water. So we're talking about the issue of a person not making wudu or something in there, a person urinating in it and then making wudu. Right? Because that's the hadith. We didn't say don't make a wudu in the swamp, don't make a wudu in a lake. Said using an example of stagnant water, that you don't pass urine in it and then make wudu in it. That's the point. Hadith. No, inshallah. No. So do not pass urine in it and then make wudu in it. Nah. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Ustad Sayyid in Boston. He's in Boston, mashallah. May Allah give you a safe trip there and back. Yes, Sister Zakira. Just like 50-50 and all. What is 50-50? Muslim men better be men. Come to our Muslim sisters talking about 50-50. I wish your brother would talk to me about one of my daughters and say 50-50 to my daughter. Shave your beard. You want to be a woman? Shave your beard at the sit down.
So what if Oh, somebody else got a
Yeah, sorry. Okay, one minute. Somebody online wanted the question of Abu
No.
someone else. Mhm.
There's for example, when a person gives sadaqah with haram money, say
Mhm.
for example, a person he was dealing in riba, but he made tawbah. What happens to that money?
That money, he has to get rid of it
Oh,
in any way that is halal, but not ibadah. It can't be used in any
okay.
act of worship. Can't be used in any act of
Subhanallah.
worship. So he
Okay.
can give it, some of the ulama say like for building secular schools and bridges and fixing the streets and let's say neighborhood roads are tore up and they need to be fixed, they can be used for that kind of stuff. But he shouldn't expect a reward from Allah except the reward of Tawbah. But he should not feed his family with it, nor should he eat or drink from it, nor should he buy clothing with it, nor should he do any act of worship with it. Just get rid of it. He has to get rid of it. Nah.
Yeah.
He has to look at it as just like if the FBI was looking like, let's say a person had a bunch of counterfeit money, and then the FBI was on to him. He just get rid of it. He's not gonna try to spend it. He's gonna get rid of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just get rid of it as soon as possible.
Okay.
Nah.
No, jazakallah khair.
Anyway, yeah. Nah. Somebody else online had a question.
نعم السلام عليكم.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Nah.
Allah yahfadak.
Allah yahfadhum. Nah.
And I have two questions. My first question is regarding the intention. Is
Mhm.
there ever a time when the intention is changed from an individual that it becomes sinful? That's the first question.
Mhm.
And the second question is there ever a time where water that is designated for drinking and is in a vessel that's generally large, maybe 50 gallons, but it's not used? Is there ever a time that will become stagnant or sitting water? Because after a while, depending on the type of vessel, it may grow mold or it may change its smell and even taste. These are the two questions. Barakallahu feek.
Wa fiikum barakallah. Repeat the first one, please.
Is there ever a time when an individual changes his intention,
Okay,
that changing his intention becomes sinful?
Nah. Okay, so if I'm understanding you correctly, are you talking about the person and changes his own intention or his intentions changing?
Changing his own intention without anything impeding the ability.
Nah. And when does it become sinful?
Naam.
Okay. Now,
Would you like me to give an example for context? Like, let's say, for example, I promise somebody that I'm going to help them,
mhm.
but there's nothing that prevented me from helping you other than I just changed my mind. It's like, you know what? I don't want to help you anymore.
If the person,
I changed it.
that's a good
like
example. And this example is in the Quran in Surah An-Nur. When Mr. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, his cousin, was the leader of the slander of our mother Aisha radiallahu anha. And Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu used to take care of him. So then Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu said he's not going to take care of him anymore because he slandered my daughter. And Allah ordered the Abu Bakr to forgive him and continue to take care of him. Don't you want Allah to forgive you? So he changed his intention, but Allah Ta'ala admonished Abu Bakr and made him keep his intention to take care of Mr. even though he had slandered our mother Aisha. So if these are from the family members and taking care of them, what? It equals silat al-rahm. It equals keeping the ties of kinship. Because if you were someone who had the ability financially to take care of a relative, and if you didn't help them out, they will be in hardship. And if they know that you had wealth and you had the ability to help them, but didn't while having the ability, would cause discord in your family and the cutting off of blood ties and not speaking to each other, then it makes your sadaqah to them now becomes obligatory because it leads to fulfilling the obligation, which is keeping the ties of kinship. Nah. So changing the intention would be sinful if it was to lead to a sin. So if changing the intention would lead to something haram being done or something obligatory being abandoned, then at that point changing the intention would be impermissible. If the person, for instance, had the money to make hajj and the ability to make hajj, and they said, I'm going to make hajj this year, and he knew that he may not have that ability next year, for him to change his mind would be sinful. When he change his mind to do that would be sinful. Because he has the ability and he knows that ability that he has, he's not a person that is constantly in a good financial state. So now he's in a good financial state. His family's taken care of, everything is done, and everything, his health is there and everything. And he know that his situation is up and down from year to year, from month to month, and like that. But he still changes his intention in order not to do his Hajj is obligatory. Then at that point, it would be impermissible to change his intention. Umar radiallahu anhu in an athar, it said that Umar, when he was the Khalifa, he ordered the people to go to those people who were wealthy and had the ability to make Hajj and didn't make Hajj, and take a fifth of their money for Bayt al-Mal because they're not believers. Nah.
Wow.
And you pray the Tahiyatul Masjid Salah along with the Fajr Sunnah, the same intention.
Nah. Now, this is another good question. Can you combine the intentions of optional prayers? So optional prayers can be combined. So let's say somebody didn't pray the Sunnah al-Fajr, and he came to the masjid, and he wanted to pray Tahiyat al-Masjid. Then the most correct position is that the person can come together and make both of them together. Make both of them he can make the intention for Tahiyat al-Masjid and Sunnah al-Fajr at the same time. Now, okay, this question, does that apply to non-Muslim family members as well? It does, because it is obligatory to keep the ties with family members. It doesn't matter if they're Muslim or not, except with those family members that was mentioned before, who are apostates from the religion of Islam, who are enemies to the religion of Islam. And what's the third one we mentioned? Apostate from the religion of Islam. Enemies to the religion of Islam. Innovators, and innovators who call to their innovation and oppose the Sunnah. These individuals, is permissible to cut them off. No.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam, jihad.
Would that include if a person's mother fell under that?
Yeah, gender has no effect on how we treat people who are enemies to Islam. Nah.
Okay, yeah, I just mentioned that because
everybody, that's a good point, Jihad, because when we talk about disbelievers, hypocrites, and all of that, we're normally always just talking about it in the masculine form. But no, there are, Allah Ta'ala said, Inna al-munafiqeen wal-munafiqeen wal-munafiqat wal-mushrikeen wal-mushrikat الظانين بالله ظن السوء عليهم دائرة السوء. Now, Allah Ta'ala said, indeed, the polytheists, men and women, and the hypocrites, men and women, and those who have ill thoughts about Allah, they are covered and surrounded in evil. وغضب الله عليهم ولعنهم, and the anger of Allah is upon them, and Allah Ta'ala has cursed them. Now, so he mentioned the male and female, just like he said, إن المؤمنين والمؤمنات المسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات والقانتين والقانتات والحافظين والحافظات والصائمين والصائمات and all الحافظين لفروجهم والحافظات and all to the end of the ayat. Now, the believing men and women, the Muslim men and women, the fasting men and women, the men and women that preserve their private parts. So this is where we have equality in the gender. This is where the equality comes in the gender. This is where the equality comes in the gender. So, and it's all in the gender. So yeah, we're equal when it comes to sin and transgression, and we're equal when it comes to being able to do righteous deeds. Now, we'll take one more question and then we'll stop the show.
How do you advise someone who makes a statement that Allah speaks to them?
Allah speaks to them?
Yeah.
First, we have to ask them, what do they mean?
Like, for example, like they're going to happen because Allah spoke to me about it.
Mm-hmm.
Or
we still ask them, what do they mean?
Okay.
Yeah. When a person says things like that, outlandish statements, it's very important. And this is part of, even if we know, let's say we know this person is a heretic. We know this person is a heretic, meaning this person has a belief that takes them out of Islam. But part of iqamat al-hujjah, establishing the evidence against an individual, is to get the person to say in clear words what they mean. We are the ones who believe in innocent until proven guilty for real. So when somebody says something, that it could be interpreted in more than one way, especially in a language like English, in which wording really doesn't have a strong impact on meaning. So it's like, did he mean what he said it? Or how many times do we have misunderstanding using the English language? So we have to make sure, what does he mean? Does he mean Allah spoke to me, but I had a feeling? Did he say I had a dream? What is he saying? based on what I've learned in the Quran, I knew that was going to happen because we're living in late. What is this individual saying? And is the person not using proper speech and interpreting with the way they feel about things taking place? Now, if the person goes further to say clearly out their mouth, Allah, I hear Allah's voice, or Allah inspires me like He inspired the prophets and messengers, or I receive revelation like that, something that is no way to be interpreted other than what the person said, then we deal with it at that point. But the importance of establishing that the person means the worst interpretation that can be given to the statement, once that is established, then at that point, that's when we begin to deal with the situation in that according to that. So let's say the person didn't mean that, then we would just advise the person, be careful how you word things, because the Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith of Tirmidhi, Inna ibn Adam la yalfidhu bi kalimatin la yu'ti laha balan yahwi biha fi nari jahannam sab'ina kharifa. Indeed, the child of Adam, he says a statement, not giving it any importance, and because of it, he will be thrown into the hellfire 70 years. Just not even given in consideration, right? So the person has to be careful and try to word things properly. That's if they didn't mean the worst case scenario. If they meant the worst case scenario, then that person has to be advised to believe that is disbelief. It will take you out of Islam. Nobody receives revelation after the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You can't receive revelation. Allah Ta'ala doesn't speak to anybody. Allah Ta'ala explained in Surah Al-Jinn, you bring the ayat, in which Allah Ta'ala said He only speaks to a messenger, and He only speaks from behind the screen, or from behind the screen, or through an angel. And like that, we explain those verses to the individual and call them back to that which is correct. I mean, Allahu A'la wa A'lam. We'll stop here, inshallah Ta'ala. And next week, we'll continue هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.